Okay, imagine this. You're somewhere where the air smells like salt and pine.
Hmm.
And these huge old oak trees, covered in Spanish moss, they're reaching out over these paths.
I'm beautiful already.
It is. Now, you might think, okay, sounds peaceful, maybe a bit solemn, but this place, on a warm morning, it actually feels incredibly alive.
And where are we talking about?
We're talking about a cemetery, Bonaventure Cemetery down in Savannah, Georgia.
Ah, Bonaventure, yes.
Hmm.
It's really quite something. Someone, an early visitor, I think, said, you can hardly find another place where the natural and the supernatural seem so, well, lovingly entwined.
Lovingly entwined. I like that. Yeah.
Like nature isn't finding the dead there. It's walking right alongside them.
And that's really our mission today, isn't it? Here on the Deep Dive, we're going to explore Bonaventure, but through the eyes of two really interesting people, wanderers, you could say,
Yeah.
separated by more than a century.
Right.
First, the naturalist John Muir, everyone knows him, and then a modern-day guy, a geologist and explorer they call the cemetery detective.
It's an intriguing name.
Yeah. So our goal here in this deep dive is to kind of uncover that surprising connection, that harmony between life and death in these places, understand the stories told by the stones themselves, and, see how places like this connect us back to the natural world.
So by the end of this, you, the listener, should have a really good handle on a fascinating, maybe unexpected topic.
Exactly. You'll be well informed. So let's start with Muir. An iconic figure, right? American wilderness. But how he ended up at Bonaventure, that's a story in itself.
It really is. It starts back in 1867. He had this factory
Oh,
accident.
yeah.
Yeah, blinded him temporarily.
Yeah,
And apparently that whole experience just completely shifted his worldview.
I can imagine.
So when he got his sight back, he just decided to walk from Indiana, heading for the Gulf of Mexico. Just walk, seeking, I guess, healing in nature.
Oh, 1,000-mile walk, just like that.
Pretty much alone, no money, basically. All he
Yeah.
carried was a plant press he'd made himself and a copy of Paradise Lost.
That's incredible, just those things. And his journal from that became a 1,000-mile walk to the Gulf, right?
That's the one. And it's this amazing mix of, sharp scientific observation, but also deep spiritual thought and just pure poetic wonder at the world.
So what part of that journey, that whole solo trek, really strikes you when you think about him ending up in a place like Bonaventure?
I think it's how he found meaning, profound meaning, in places most people might overlook or even avoid. And that long walk, well, it led him straight to Bonaventure.
By chance. Or,
It seems like a mix of necessity and curiosity. There's a whole chapter in his journal called Camping Among the Tombs.
no way,
Yeah. He actually spent 6 nights sleeping in Bonaventure Cemetery.
sleeping there. Back then.
But here's the thing. Muir didn't find it creepy or sad.
No.
No, he saw it as a place of sublime harmony. That's his phrase. Harmony between life and death, nature and memory. It just shows his unique way of seeing things.
Okay, sublime harmony. Let's hold on to that thought. Now, fast forward over 100 years. Enter Keith Harper, the cemetery detective.
Right. Our modern wanderer
And he travels, get this, in his Honda-minium.
is what now?
Honda-minium. It's a Honda Accord, a 2015 model, but he's modified it. Sleeping platform in the back, boots, books, kayak on the roof,
Wow, okay.
geological drawings, maps. It sounds basic, but really geared up for his purpose.
He sounds like quite a character. So he's a geologist?
By inclination, yeah. But he studies cemeteries professionally, and he says he's directly inspired by Muir, by that same sense of reverent curiosity.
Reverent curiosity. I like that too.
So Harper arrives at Bonaventure, warm morning, still air. He describes tasting salt and pine, seeing those huge oaks like we pictured, clothed in Spanish moss and resurrection ferns, and the sort of ragged fields and cottages leading up to the gates, which he said felt solemn but also inviting.
So he felt that same atmosphere Muir described, that nature and memory walking together.
Exactly. It seems really palpable there. Why do you think Bonaventure manages that? That feeling of harmony, which is so different from how we usually think of cemeteries.
Well, I think a big part of it is just how much the natural landscape dominates. It's not overly manicured. Muir even noted how the graves were low. They didn't really interrupt the flow of the forest floor.
Ah, okay.
It feels less like a garden for the dead and more like a living, wild place that just happens to hold these memories, these graves.
Okay.
And that brings us to something really core to Harper's work, something fascinating. He believes every gravestone tells a dual story.
A dual story. What does that mean?
It means one story is about the person, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
who they were when they lived. But the other story is about the stone itself, the earth it came from.
Okay, interesting. So geology meets genealogy, almost.
Sort of, yeah. Let's take marble, for example.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the older monuments in Bonaventure are marble. We see it as elegant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sculptors love it because it's soft enough to carve intricate details.
Right, very classic.
It is. But geologically speaking, marble is metamorphic.
Mm-hmm.
It started as limestone, then got transformed by heat and pressure deep in the earth.
Okay.
But here's the thing. In a place like Savannah, with all that humidity, the salt from the river,
Mm-hmm.
marble is actually quite delicate.
Delicate marble.
Yeah, acid rain, the salt air, it causes it to cure sugar. That's the term. It breaks down into these little powdery grains. Harper talked about seeing a white marble angel, almost faceless now.
Wow.
The inscription worn smooth, you could just barely see the outline of a wing.
Mm.
And he compared that, really powerfully, I think, to memory itself fading away, slow erosion.
That's a potent image. The stone itself showing impermanence. What about granite? You see a lot of granite markers too, right? They seem much tougher.
Exactly. That contrast is key. Granite markers are, well, they look darker, more stoic, you could say.
Yeah.
And their inscriptions, the Harper noted, they're often still sharp. You can see the little flecks of biotite and quartz catching the light.
Because granite is different geologically.
Totally. Granite is igneous, born from molten rock, cooling slowly deep underground. Ancient heat. It doesn't sugar like marble. It might crack eventually, sure, but it holds up much, much longer.
And where does that granite come from?
Could be quarried nearby in Georgia or Vermont, or even places as far off as India. And Harper's point is, these granite stones will probably outlast the very names carved into them.
So if marble speaks to fading memory, granite is about endurance, defiance.
Something like that. A kind of geological permanence, maybe reflecting our own desire for things to last, against time.
That's fascinating. The stone itself tells such a story. And Harper didn't just look at the type of stone, did he? He looked at the symbols carved on them.
Oh, absolutely. He mentioned seeing things like a column broken in half.
Symbolizing a life cut short.
Exactly. Or a weeping willow carved onto slate.
Yeah.
Or hands clasped together, but the fingers are just starting to part.
Wow. So these aren't just decorations.
Not at all. Harper calls them languages. Ways people communicated meaning, grief, hope across generations, even if they were gone.
It shows how much we need to communicate across time, doesn't it? And how we use materials from the earth to do that.
It really does. It's about using the environment to create these lasting narratives of loss and endurance.
So, okay, this whole dive into the geology, the stories in stone, it really drives home that idea of Bonaventure not being scary, but a place of, what was it, stillness and story?
Right. Like Muir said, the graves don't interrupt the landscape.
They're part of it.
Exactly. And life is everywhere there. Harper mentioned resurrection ferns on the tree branches, the ones that look dead but then unfurl with a little moisture.
Oh, yeah.
And mockingbirds singing. It feels like the dead are resting within the rhythm of this living place, not somehow separate beneath it.
Which makes you think, maybe we in the modern world are too quick to label these places as just morbid when they're actually full of life and history.
I think that's a really valid point. Are we missing something by just seeing them as endings?
And thinking about connections, Harper felt a really strong connection to Muir there, didn't he?
He really did. He described stopping at this quiet spot in the cemetery and just picturing Muir, imagining him right there, over a century before, tired from walking, swatting away mosquitoes.
Settling down among the roots and stones.
Yeah. And remembering that story about Muir choosing Bonaventure to sleep because it felt safer than the woods around it.
But then waking up with his head on a brand new grave.
Can you imagine? Harper said he could almost see Muir curled up there, clutching his journal. It really collapses the time between them.
Definitely. And Harper didn't just walk around, right? He used his kayak.
That's right. Later in the day, he took his kayak off the condominium, put it in the Wilmington River, which runs right past the cemetery bluff.
So he saw it from the water.
Yeah, paddling along, looking up at the same trees he'd been walking under earlier. And he had this thought, this analogy.
What was it?
He said, water, like time, wears down even the hardest stone. And like grief, it cannot be held still.
Wow. That's quite profound. Connecting the geology, the river's power to human emotion.
Yeah, linking those natural processes we were just talking about, erosion, time, to something as deeply personal as grief, its persistence, its fluidity.
So after the kayaking, what did he do? He couldn't sleep there like Muir, right?
No, laws have changed. But he went back to the condominium for dinner, reread that Camping Among the Tombs, chapter from Muir's journal,
Uh-huh.
and he camped nearby, just outside the cemetery, parked safely under another big oak. And he wrote about thinking of Muir sleeping on that fresh grave.
While he was relatively cozy in his car.
Right. But Harper felt that, in spirit, he shared the same kind of peace that Muir must have found there. A quiet connection across the years.
It seems like Bonaventure really offered both of them something similar, despite the centuries separating them.
I think so. Harper felt it gave him what it gave Muir. Just a quiet place. A place to study, to wonder, and maybe to reconnect with the simple truth that we all return to the elements eventually. Stone, soil, water, breath.
Did he take anything? A souvenir?
No, nothing like that. Just his notes, his photos. His footprints would have been gone quickly. But he felt he left changed.
How so?
He felt he'd found something enduring there. Not death itself, but the echo of life. Layered in the stone, in the soil, still whispering.
The echo of life, whispering still. Okay, so wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you, listening right now?
Well, I think this journey through Bonaventure, with Muir and the cemetery detective as our guides, it really highlights how nature, geology, human stories, memory, they're all tangled together in these places we might usually just associate with endings.
Yeah, we definitely saw that dual story in the gravestones, the person and the earth, and that feeling of life within the cemetery, not just alongside it.
Right. And maybe the takeaway is about looking at familiar places, even places of rest, with sort of new eyes, a different lens.
Seeing unexpected layers.
Exactly. Layers of meaning, story, connection to deep time, connection to natural cycles. It reminds us that even in the quietest places, there's often a really powerful story going on.
So here's a thought to leave you with. The next time you find yourself in a quiet green spot, could be a park, could be a cemetery, anywhere really, just pause for a second. Think about the stones under your feet maybe, the soil. Consider the ancient stories they might hold, the echoes of lives lived. What else might be whispering there, if you really listen?